Hello there and welcome to another Coffee with Colm. Thanks for tuning in. This is the fourth in a four-part mini-series that I've put together to help you and I both get a little more out of life, or perhaps indeed a little more into life. It started a number of weeks ago when I introduced the viewer to PJ and his fur-lined mousetrap, which led to the patchwork quilts theory of life, which you can check out. I've left a link in the bottom of the blog if you'd like to check that out. That led to us talking about a 2020 vision, which is basically you and I getting a vision for our birthdays on 2020 and then taking steps towards that vision so that we actually arrive there proactively rather than just turning up and realizing we're not quite where we had hoped we might be. And then that led to some of you out there asking me for a little more detail as to how we might make that happen, how we might manifest the 2020 vision in our lives. So over the last 4 weeks, this being week 4, I put out a mini-series which covered some of the basis, some of the stuff that I've learned over the years. And it started with Quadrant 2 living. It started with a discussion around the 4 quadrants that make up life. Some of them are urgent and important. Some of them are urgent but not important. Some of them are important but not urgent, and others are just a waste of time. And Quadrant 2 living is where we focus on stuff that's important but not necessarily urgent. So Quadrant 2 living was the first of the 4 parts of this mini-series. And after that we spoke about the Big Rocks theory. And the Big Rocks theory, again, link at the bottom of the blog if you need to go back and check it out. But the Big Rocks theory is basically where you and I need to proactively put time and effort into those things that are most important rather than being reactive and working to everybody else's agenda for us. And then last week you and I spoke about the roles that we play, because you and I were not one-dimensional. Regrettably, too many people put time and effort and planning into their careers or their economic activity, but often, far too often, people don't put planning or time or thought into the rest of their lives, and they end up being somewhat out of kilter. So we spoke about the roles that you play, and then I got you to write down the roles that you play, and I got you to prioritize them in terms of what's most important to you in terms of your 2020 vision. So for example, if health is important to you but you're not doing enough about it, well then it becomes a priority for you, and you need to start being proactive about plotting time for it. If relationships are a priority for you and they're not quite on track, well then in terms of your 2020 vision, where you'd like to end up on your birthday in 2020 in relation to your relationships, well then you got to proactively do something about that. And so we've looked at Quadrant 2 living, we've looked at the Big Rocks theory, we've looked at the roles that you play, we've looked at your 2020 vision, and if you tie all of that together, the question becomes, how do you make it happen? I've said it many times in the past, I'll keep saying it, the week is the perfect patch in the fabric of life. And so how you and I are going to manifest our birthdays in 2020 is by taking it 1 week at a time. Every week is the same size, 168 hours. It's the same for you, it's the same for me, it's the same for Barack Obama, it's the same for Sir Richard Branson, it's the same regrettably for the down and out on the street. But every week is 168 hours, it's exactly the same shape. And the only question is, and where you and I are in charge of our lives, is we get to decide what we do in those 168 hours. And that's what this week is all about. I'm going to talk to you and show you, I've put some graphics into the blog and some graphics into the video here to show you how to plot your week properly. So what I'd like you to do here is imagine your calendar for next week. Now it's not just the 5-day calendar, we're gone well past planning just for our career or our economic activity. So you've got 7 days, you have 168 hours and it's outlaid in front of you, and it starts fresh, completely blank, okay? What you need to do if you're going to be serious about this stuff is you need to go back to your 2020 vision and get clear on your 2020 vision. Where are you headed? Where do you want to wake up? How do you want to wake up on your birthday in 2020? That's the starting point. You must have a direction, otherwise you're just spinning your wheels. The second thing that you need to do then is you need to go back to your roles sheet that we worked on last week, where you identified the most important roles. You identified all the roles that you play in your life, and then you prioritized them 1 through 4 or 1 through 7 or 1 through 10 or whatever. You decided what was most important to you in terms of your 2020 vision, and you said, no, my number 1 priority role that I play is blah, blah, blah. And my second one is blah, blah, blah. And my third one is blah, blah, blah. So you need your 2020 vision intact. You need your roles sheet in front of you. And then we got you last week to ask yourself, what one thing could you do in the week ahead that would have the biggest positive impact on that role. So that's where we're headed with this, right? 2020 vision, the roles that you play, the number one priority role, what one thing could you do in this next week that would have the biggest positive impact on that role, and that, my friend, is the big rock for that role. And take that big rock now, please, and look at your calendar, 168 free hours, and decide on what day and at what time in the day and how much time you would like to apply to you achieving that big rock, that one piece of work, that one thing that would make the biggest positive impact in that role. So please imagine your calendar or get a piece of paper out now and do it now. Look at Thursday afternoon, 3 o'clock, and plot that one action that you want to take, that one thing that you know would have the biggest positive impact on that particular number one priority role. Do it now. And if you just look at what's happening here, you've now got 168 hours at this moment in time. Perhaps 167 of them or 165 of them are blank still because you've taken positive action. You've decided to live your life rather than be lived. And you've taken positive action and you've taken the number one priority role in terms of your 2020 vision. You've decided what one thing you want to get done this week, and it's now on your planner. First thing down. Happy days. Most people never do this. You're in the top 1% already because most people don't live like this. It's entirely up to you how you live the next 168 hours, and you've taken one of those hours or two of those hours or three of those hours and you've proactively decided, I'm applying those few hours to that big rock in that role because that's the most important role I have determined in terms of my 2020 vision. Happy days. Congratulations. Now, go to your second most important role in terms of your 2020 vision. Identify the one thing, the big rock for that role. Look at your planner and decide when is it most comfortable for you, because you're in charge, to do that, and plot it in your planner. Okay? You've now got two elements in your planner for next week. The rest is still blank. But you've taken two positive steps on two roles that are most important to you. And simply repeat. Go to role number 3 and figure out what the big rock is and plot it in your planner. And then go to role number 4 and figure out what the big rock is and plot it in your planner. And if you do this for a handful of roles, 4 or 5 or 6 roles, right? Just look at your planner. All of a sudden, you've got a plan in place for next week, perhaps for the first time in your life. You've got a plan to be proactive about taking positive steps towards the direction that you're headed. It's wonderful. I'm amazed at how many people don't do this, and I'm amazed at how most people who do this for the first time get this aha moment and say, my goodness, is it really as simple as that? And it sort of is really as simple as that. You have to wrestle the 168 hours to the ground. You've got to decide how you're going to live them. Otherwise, you are being lived by other people. So, if you've done this properly, and I really do urge you to consider next week, I really do urge you to figure out what's your 2020 vision, what's the number one priority role, what's the big rock, and apply it into your planner. And then repeat the process for role number 2, role number 3, role number 4, and so on. And when you've done that, when you've got the most important stuff plotted in your planner, well, then go and look at the rest of the stuff that you know you have to do. You have to do some work, right? You have to go to the shops, and you have to bring the car in for service, and you have to bring the dog to the vet, and you have to do a whole load of stuff. Great. That's life. Okay. Plot that in next. But the most important thing is you started by plotting in the stuff that's most important to you. So if you plot in the stuff that's most important to you first, your big rocks first, plot in the other stuff that you must do, the important and urgent stuff that you must do, plot that in second, and you know what you're left with? 2 things. 1, you're left with a feeling of satisfaction. You've taken control. That's the first thing, right? Second thing is you're left with a load of white space. What have you been doing with your time? Remember the first time I started doing this type of stuff, I couldn't believe it. Flat out, busy out, there weren't enough hours in the day. And all of a sudden, somebody taught me how to do this type of stuff. And I realised, hang on a second, I don't know what I've been doing, because all of a sudden I've got all the important stuff in here and the stuff that I need to do. And there's still a ton of white space. What's going on with that? But the reality is, if we don't have a plan, we just fill up our time. Let's be honest with ourselves. If we don't have a plan, we just fill up our time, because being busy feels good, you know. Being busy for the sake of being busy oftentimes is better than feeling not busy at all. So we can sort of understand why people get busy and stay busy and they feel like they're being productive, but they're not. So let's do a quick recap here. You need to have a 2020 vision for your life. If you don't have that, forget about it, because you've got no direction, you're just spinning your wheels. So get a 2020 vision for your life at all costs. Second thing, you need to figure out the roles that you play. What roles do you play? And figure out the priority of those roles in terms of your 2020 vision. And then take the number one role, figure out the big rock for that number one role, and plot it in your calendar first. Happy days. If you do that and repeat it for role number 2, role number 3, role number 4, and so on, and then go to all the stuff that you must do, you will end up, my friend, with 168 hours properly planned, with lots of white space in there. And another reason you need lots of white space in there is because something will go wrong, right? You know, something will happen on Tuesday morning when you were supposed to do a big rock activity, and all of a sudden that big rock activity gets pushed aside because of something more pressing that is in line with your 2020 vision. But because you've got lots of white space in your calendar, you can take it out of Tuesday morning and put it somewhere else without losing the week. The week is the perfect patch in the fabric of life. What's really important is that you make the week work. I'm really not a fan of the motivational theory that says make every second count. You know, if you're not making every second count, you're not living. That doesn't do it for me at all. I'm not interested in what you're doing this very minute. I am interested, very interested in making sure that you make the week work, because the week is the perfect patch in the fabric of life. And if you can make this week work for you in terms of your 2020 vision, job done, happy days, take the weekend off, right? The way to do this is plan the week each week before the week begins. Happy days, that's what we're doing here, okay? Then organize and execute your week around the priorities that you've set that are important to you in terms of your 2020 vision. And then simply review and repeat. Make next week work, make the following week work, make the following week work, make the following week work, and then all of a sudden you end up at your 2020 vision on your birthday in 2020, living the life that you actually want. Happy days. And thank you for joining me for this week's Coffee with Colm. I hope and trust as ever that you got something from it. If you've enjoyed it and you think somebody else would benefit, please pass the link on. I'd be delighted. If it's your first time here and you've stumbled across it and you'd like more of this type of stuff, go to the homepage, colmobrianmotivation.com, leave me some details and we'll make sure you get a link like this on a weekly basis. Most importantly, please consider what's been shared here today and apply it into your thinking for this next week or so. And then equally as importantly, please come back next week and let's share another coffee together and I ruminate on some other aspect of my business journey, some other lesson that I've learned as I've journeyed, and in the hopes that it'll benefit you. So meantime, get some good R&R, get some good coffee if you can, get some fresh air, get some rest, get organized for the week ahead when the time is right, and apply this week's lesson in particular into your planning for next week. And we'll see you here this time next week. Take care. Oh, love my coffee. Talk to you soon. Have a great week. See you next week. Bye for now.